It's easy to imagine what life was like 10,000 years ago. Maybe you picture woolly mammoths and cavemen. Maybe you imagine the pyramids being built or the Great Wall of China taking shape. But those are all just visions of the late Stone Age and the beginning of human civilization. They represent only a tiny fraction of what life was actually like 100,000 years ago. At that point in Earth's history, our hominid ancestors had been around for about two. Let's start with the basics. Humans 100,000 years ago were still very much hunter-gatherers. Agriculture wouldn't become common for another 80,000 years or so, and domestication of animals would not arrive for another 60,000 years after that. This means our ancestors were still nomadic, traveling from place to place following herds of animals and gathering wild fruits and vegetables. The world they inhabited looked very different from today's world. At the end of the last ice age, about 12,000 years ago, most of the world became much warmer and wetter, leading to the formation of large grassy plains. These plains supported huge herds of herbivores, which in turn attracted large carnivores. But 100,000 years ago, the world was still recovering from the last ice age, and much of it looked more like a barren desert. What little plant life did exist would have been mostly shrubs and small trees with some patches of grasses. Large forests didn't begin to appear until the Earth warmed up again about 40,000 years ago. This meant that people 100,000 years ago would have spent a lot of time searching for food. Hunting and gathering was not an easy job. Our ancestors probably spent several hours each day looking for edible plants, and maybe 10 to 12 hours a day if they were hunting large animals. Because they spent so much time looking for food, humans 100,000 years ago probably had to travel at least 3 to 5 miles every day. That may not sound like a lot, but when you're walking, it's enough to make you pretty tired. When our ancestors finally found some food, they likely ate it in a group. Humans 100,000 years ago probably lived in groups of 20 to 30 people. These groups would have been made up of several families who share common ancestors. They would have worked together to hunt animals and gather food, and then they would eat together as a group. These groups were also likely fluid, meaning that people would come and go. Young men might leave their group to join another group or start their own group. Women might move from one group to another when they got married. This kept the population spread out and prevented any one group from getting too big. The average person in this time period would have had a short life. The average lifespan was probably between 30 and 35 years. This is because life was dangerous. Not only were there wild animals to worry about, but other humans were a danger too. At this point in human history, warfare was becoming more and more common as groups of humans competed for resources. If you managed to live past the age of 30 or 35, you would have been considered a senior citizen. As a member of this ancient society age, they would have been less able to hunt and gather food, so they would have become more of a burden to their group. Eventually, the group would decide that the best thing for the elder to do would be to leave the group and die on their own. This is a grim picture of life 100,000 years ago, but it was the reality for our ancestors. Life was short, food was hard to find, and death was always around the corner. If you want to learn more about what life was like throughout history, stay tuned for more information.